Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the SEANC View podcast. I'm John Owens, along with Artis Watkins and Samantha Klein. Today, we also have SEANC lobbyist Flint Benson in the house to discuss the opening of the legislative short session. And let's get right to it. So Suzanne Beasley is recovering from an illness this week, but we got Flint Benson that stepped up to the plate. You're going to hit a home run for us, right?
I'll just fit in wherever I can, Joe.
So the legislature comes back to Raleigh the next week on Tuesday, correct?
Correct.
For the short session.
For the supposed short session.
And what does that mean? What is a short session?
Traditionally, short session has meant that they were coming in to fine-tune the budget that they passed last year. But since they passed no budget last year, we're still operating on a budget from 2 years ago. So we're fine-tuning that and trying to see if we can get an actual budget. And who knows where this budget will end up at and by when.
Or if at all, right?
Yeah. I really think that there's a mood to make sure there's a budget before they go in front of the voters.
Yeah.
But as far as a timeline, you hear everything at the legislative building. You hear it's going to be a very quick session, that they're going to be out by July 4th. I think Artemis can verify that we've heard they were going to get out by July 4th every year for the last 25 years, and it never happens.
But you're a political strategist, Flint.
Right.
So if you were the political strategist for the powers that be at the General Assembly, would you recommend they get a budget?
I would recommend they get a budget and that they get out before July the 4th.
Right. That's what I'm thinking.
So I could be back in the district. We know, as we talked about on a previous podcast, there's an anti-incumbency movement out there. You want to be back home campaigning, shaking hands, kissing babies, being in all the photo ops that you can locally,
and
buying eggs,
and look, we got you a great budget here. We got a new park here in Sanford. We got a new whatever in Wilson. So you want to be there doing that.
10% raises for state employees,
or at least 12.
Yeah. So we're going to get down to the nuts and bolts of the issues that matter to our members. Those rarely ever or don't change. Pay, healthcare, retirement issues, and we're going to kind of set the scene going into the short session. But first, I want to talk a little bit about what's happening in the news this week. The first thing on my mind is State Treasurer Brad Briner announced that he's expanding AI usage at his office for his staff. There was a story Monday or Tuesday about that, and it was kind of a big deal for, I guess maybe there was nothing else happening, so that was the big story of the week.
There were so many AI stories.
Yeah.
Coming at it from every angle. I even saw on the BBC big AI story the same day, and I thought, what's going on today?
It's all coordinated.
It's all related somehow. But yes, Treasurer Briner announced that fairly huge initiative that the Treasurer's office has been undertaking with AI and their intentions moving forward with that.
Yeah, so he said that they did a 12-week pilot program in last year, and they saw some good results. So they're going to start implementing ChatGPT, Claude, Copilot, and GitHub. So it's not just one tool, it's a bunch of different tools. We've talked about AI several times on this podcast, and we've kind of been all over the map about it. And I think
you love the topic. It's your favorite topic.
Yeah, it is. But I think everyone's kind of all over the map on it right now. We're trying to figure out where we stand. When this first came out, I think there was kind of two separate reactions we could have as an organization. You had kind of the reaction that, what about the data that they're putting into these AIs? Is it safe? Is it safe to do?
That would be my question with any public usage of AI is, if you hold sensitive information, how's that being handled? I don't think we have enough information to know right now.
Yeah.
And that's what struck me. And I think SEANC's statement kind of tried to hit that point.
Yeah.
We're not against progress, but we don't really know all of the things that potentially are issues with this. And one of the big concerns we'd have, especially around the health plan or the retirement plan, where there's a lot of sensitive information, is that being handed over? I think at the federal level with DOGE, that became a big issue.
No one is against being efficient, but we also have to be concerned about transparency.
Yeah.
That's the biggest thing I see with AI.
Yeah, and we were talking last night about this just in general. We were texting back and forth, and I think someone brought up, are there regulations about this? And if you think about it, it's really just like another software program. Like you put information into Excel, and there has to be some sort of limit to what you can put into these things.
But even in SEANC is the private sector, and even in the private sector, when you take into account your liability, when you're controlling personal identifying information, you have to consider anything like that you're using, and it determines your liability, and you want to keep that liability low for purposes of citizens, in this case, employees or any other citizen, where a state agency is involved. We have more than the liability of the state as an issue. We have the responsibility to keep citizens safe, even if those citizens are employees.
And there's been kind of a push not to regulate a lot of these AI companies on the federal level. And it's just interesting. I wonder if the state level will have to step in and do that.
Yeah. I mean, well,
that's what's been said in Washington, D.C., is let the states handle it.
Yeah.
But the same money is here in the states on behalf of AI, just like crypto.
And there's so much money flowing in.
Yeah.
The same people that want to lobby for AI in D.C. will spend that money in North Carolina, too.
And another angle is just more broadly how AI will impact workers. Like everyone's thinking about, is this going to take my job? And as an organization that represents workers, we're going to be thinking about that. Like, is it going to mean lots of job cuts? And how do we represent those people? How do we protect them and things like that?
Well, I don't think anything just because it might take a job is a problem, but how much do you know about the thing you're replacing a human that can be supervised with artificial intelligence? We don't know exactly what that will look like, and we don't know what kind of back to liability that will leave the state with or anything else. It depends on the jobs.
Yeah, and I can see, just like with the state health plan, being a retiree from the state myself, is my information on the state health plan, is that going to be confidential? Now we can bind an employee with a confidentiality agreement. Can we do that with AI?
Yeah. Did you have something, Sammy?
I think the job thing is a big thing that my generation is concerned about, is the fear of jobs being cut, because there are already so many people in my generation who are struggling to get work, even with a 4-year degree. But another thing that my generation is very concerned about when it comes to AI is the data centers and how those are going to affect our environment, because we're still very young, and we would
power bill.
We would like our environment to, survive while we do. So we're still concerned about those things as well.
Well, the power bill thing is, Sammy and I were talking about that already. It's already going up. Mine went up already. So they're talking about doing a data center in Sanford, where I live. So.
It is, and there's no way. I mean, it's been debated to the nth degree, but the power company isn't picking that up. They're passing that along. I mean, that's good business. They have shareholders to report to, and they're passing that along.
So coming down the pike is an all things AI edition of the SEANC View podcast. I need to find some experts to talk to us about it. And
we should have one person who is for it and one person who's against it, so it can just be a debate and have them argue it out.
I mean, I think one of the pieces in the article about Treasurer Briner's usage, he said, I haven't written a speech all year.
Yeah.
Okay, great. I can see where that could be a use for artificial intelligence. I think, like Flint said, it's a different issue if you're talking about writing a speech than if you're talking about in any way being related to the management of very sensitive data.
Yeah.
I will say, when it comes to that, though, it's also, my generation sees it very much as disingenuous, and that you just threw a prompt into something like AI and let them spit something back out at you, instead of genuinely taking your time to research and figure out what you should be saying.
Yeah. I mean, I haven't been able to tell with Treasurer Briner's speeches, but I feel like in emails, I can tell.
Yeah.
There are definitely ways to tell, like the M dash and the words that it uses.
It's got a certain tone to it.
Yeah.
But what could go wrong? I mean, progress is progress. I remember when the internet came around, there were people worried about the internet, but there's been nothing bad.
Oh, no, nothing
bad
has happened.
No scam.
Never.
Nothing.
The question about anything is, does an increase in productivity mean an increase in the standard of living for people in this state or in this country? The fact of the matter is, since the 70s, the productivity has been off the charts nationally and in this state, but the standard of living has increased by a much tinier amount. So how much does this make our lives easier versus how much does it make our lives fuller? Like, it might make our actual jobs easier, but is it changing the standard of living?
Yeah.
The access to good healthcare, good schools, good anything we want for our families? Probably not.
And this is probably not applicable to state workers or state government, but who cares about productivity if no one can buy what you're producing, right? Because they don't have jobs and wages are so
which we're hitting that tipping point,
Yeah. So
I'll tell you, anytime I see an AI commercial, I automatically say, well, not using that because I don't want a computer advertising that to me.
Right.
The only other news story that I saw was that the state Supreme Court is going to reconsider the class action status of the Lake case. This is the case involving health care for retirees.
Yes, starting in 2011.
Yeah. So right now it's a case of 220,000 plaintiffs all in one class action suit. If the state Supreme Court rules that it can't be a class action, then each of those people would have to file separate suits. So it basically would end that.
You might want to explain what.
Yeah, explain a little bit more, I guess.
Oh, okay.
Half the people probably don't know what Lake.
The Lake case came about because the state health plan changed for retirees back in 2011. Up until that point, retirees had the option of a 90-10 plan that was free for retirees. Well, they started charging for it in 2012. So this case was filed by former state Supreme Court Justice I. Beverly Lake Jr. He's deceased now. And like I said, it's been going on for 14 years, and it goes through various stages. But what they're trying to do is say everybody that was vested and on the state health plan as a retiree as of 2011 would go back to that 90-10 plan. And I think the copay then was like maybe $700. It was much cheaper than what it is now.
Yeah.
And it would cost billions of dollars if they prevailed in the lawsuit.
So this story
class action.
This story says that it would cost taxpayers $3 billion if they won.
Yeah. So the way we've talked about this internally at SEANC with members is to be very honest and say, the Lake case is one of those situations where if you win, you lose.
Yeah.
Because if the state had to pay $3 billion as a result of the Lake case anyway, you wouldn't see the kind of health plan you see, period. There would be tremendous changes coming. You might get, if you had paid a certain amount in, a little party favor on the way out the door, but the party would be over in terms of.
Well, you can just imagine at the beginning of this year, we were talking about the state health plan had a $500 million deficit.
Yeah.
Add $3.5 billion to that. And now we're looking at a $4 billion deficit.
So you could see premiums skyrocket or even not even exist anymore, right? The plan could
just be done away with, bankrupt, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah. So the oral arguments started on Tuesday morning in that case, and we'll just be watching what happens with it, I guess, right? Do you have any feeling on what?
Should be a finding on it within the next 5 years.
Hopefully.
At least in the next 14, right? So we'll definitely be watching that. I don't have anything else newsworthy to talk about. I'm sure there's things out there. Do you guys have anything else before we jump into the short session?
I think the story about there was a story today. We're recording this on Wednesday, April 15th. Happy Tax Day. There was a story I saw today about campaign money of North Carolina legislative leaders and how they can use that on things like meals and I guess suits and all kinds of stuff. And a lot of people are really up in arms about that. But our pay for legislators is $14,000 a year and some change.
Mm-hmm.
And so I know the general gut reaction, knee-jerk reaction is, good, don't pay them squat. They don't, I don't like them getting paid a lot and we don't get paid much. But the bottom line is, for the public, it's terrible. If you don't have decent compensation, good compensation even, for these legislative positions, you will not have people that know anything about the real world in those positions because they can't afford, if they're not retired or independently wealthy, they can't afford it. So you're not going to get a cross-section of legislators that look like North Carolina. They don't.
Yeah.
And that's where we are.
Not to bash them, but, people who can do it, who have the time to do it and the resources.
Yeah, there's lots of insurance folks. There's lots of, used to be more attorneys than now, actually.
You never have many young attorneys.
No.
You have just a smattering of those.
'Cause you can't run a practice anymore and do that. So.
Well, I can give a perfect example here in Raleigh. I know a chiropractor who has a small business who is very good on politics. He knows the issues and would make a great candidate. But there's no way with a couple of kids in college or just graduating from college that he can give up his business to go for $13,951 a year.
And arguably, that's exactly who you want to be making decisions because they know what real life is like.
Yeah.
And so that's a tough issue. And I think anytime, certainly with our members at SEANC, we always tell them, you don't want to hold this legislative pay down. That's not what you want.
And the last raise they received was in 1993, I believe it was.
Yeah. But I mean, because it's penny wise, pound foolish, because if you've got 170 people is all we're talking about. Let's say you paid them all $100,000 a year.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you bumped that up. Okay. Out of the huge budget that we have, that would be a drop in the bucket. But again, the folks making those decisions would start to look a lot more like your neighbors.
Yeah.
How many more state employees would be willing to serve in the legislature if it started at 75,000, 80,000?
Let's start that movement. Let's get this pay jacked up for legislators.
We didn't prepare this, but do you know what other states do? Like, there are full-time legislatures, right?
Yeah, but we're still one of the lowest paid ones, period.
Yeah.
Well, and we're what's called a citizen legislature, where the idea is you have a job and you very rarely have to come. You have to come a lot for a few months was the idea, between May and July in the short session, and between January and June. Yeah, May, you're right, in the long session. That's not what it's turned into. It's turned into a year-round thing.
Yeah.
There's committee meetings all year long.
Well, I heard one legislator the other day, she said she was on 26 different committees.
Yeah.
Wow.
So she's going to be traveling all the time.
Yeah.
Being on that many committees.
We need some efficiency.
Yep.
Yeah. Maybe we could just have like AI legislators.
Or maybe they should appoint a committee on efficiency, legislative
efficiency.
Loge.
Yeah.
Are you going to volunteer to chair it, be a guest chair from the outside?
Yeah, that's what, and they need private citizens to be the chair and the committee.
And they take so much grief too. I mean, it's like such a thankless job. I mean, I know that they probably share the responsibility for some of that grief. I mean, yes, they're elected officials and they signed up for this, but they're not getting paid for the amount of.
No, I mean, and I honestly do sincerely believe if we're going to have what we call a citizen legislature, it should look like the citizens. And the only way for that is to pay an acceptable amount to make it worth it. Again, remember, most of these folks aren't from Wake County. They're leaving their families to come up here and do this. And especially the ones with young families. It's a massive commitment. It's a massive sacrifice.
Well, no, one legislator was telling me that his last job before he got elected to the legislature, he was making over $120,000 a year.
I'm sure.
Had great union health insurance. And now he comes to the legislature making $13,951 a year with state health plan.
Yeah.
And he was like, I never knew it was like this.
Right.
And he's in his mid-40s, so.
He thought he would continue to be rich.
Yeah.
Exactly.
All right. Well, they're state employees, so we can advocate for them too, right?
100%.
Right.
So let's jump into the short session. And like I said, we have concrete issues that we always are advocating for. First one is pay. And I know all three of these are going to deal with the budget. So maybe we should just start with talking about the budget a little bit. I know we think they're going to have one, right?
We feel like there'll be some compensation, but the big question is, will it be a cost of living raise? Will it be a bonus? Will it be a combination of both? How much will it be?
Yeah.
And those are the things you have to look for. In the same way with COLAs with retirees, will there be a cost of living adjustment for retirees, or will they do bonuses again?
They're not doing a cost of living adjustment.
It's going to be bonuses on the retirees.
Yeah.
Hopefully there'll be some COLAs for active state employees. I feel like there's a movement towards that with the legislature.
So give me your elevator pitch. Like, say you run up on a legislator in the elevator. what do you say about pay? What do you tell them?
Well, I just tell them, you just have to look at state government right now. You see the vacancy rates are 25% or more in some agencies, and this is presenting a challenge to the workforce across the state because taxpayers are not getting what they're paying for. They're getting less services because we're not funding these jobs to be competitive with the labor market. And when those positions are unfilled, it increases the workload for the employees that are there.
Yeah. And Artis brings up a good point, usually these discussions, that the state has grown by 2 million people since 2009, and yet there are fewer state employees, right?
Right. So like Flint just said, if you have these employees having to do that much more work, that means what the public's getting is so much less. And that impacts business, all right? That impacts the bottom line. I can't imagine you can find a legislator who would say, yeah, we've got enough state employees in my district. I don't want any more of those. Because the bottom line is so many communities in North Carolina have ultimately been built around that initial investment from the public sector. Take Morganton, such a great example. The public sector put a lot of money into Morganton, and the private sector proliferated around it. Now Burke County is such a strong economic force because of ultimately an investment in services that were needed, but putting them somewhere where it could grow other stuff around it. And I don't think any legislator would say, yeah, I wouldn't need that in my district. So the next question is, there's talk of job cuts because of all these vacancies. Oh, let's cut a lot of these jobs, and then that's how we can pay for the raise. Let's think about that. 2 million more people and your citizens to serve, and you're going to cut even more the people serving them, which hadn't changed since 2009?
And then you're going to wonder why there's line to get something done.
And then be mad at the state agencies when there's a DMV situation. So that also impacts business, though. So at the end of the day, if you care about the dollars, the cost of turnover, nobody's looked at it in at least 10 years. It's been more than 10 years, but at least 15. The last time somebody looked at it was the Purdue administration, that I can tell. Nobody can tell me that it's been looked at since then. So cost of turnover during the Purdue administration was $400 million a year. That's when we didn't have a vacancy crisis. So what's our cost of turnover now? It's got to be at least $1 billion.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you just spend the money to have actual people serving people rather than spending the money advertising jobs and then training people who walk out the door less than 12 months later? Just from a pure business perspective. And a pure perspective of having enough people to go to merchants in their communities instead of losing more jobs. It just seems like common daggum sense. Sammy, I could see something's in your mind.
I mentioned this before we started recording, but a lot of people on TikTok will talk about moving to North Carolina, and different people will talk about it. And you look in the comments, and this directly relates to us not having enough services. You look in the comments, and everyone who is my age or a little bit older than me saying, do not move here. We are full.
Yeah.
Because we don't have the services to get things done.
No.
We already have long lines. We're already waiting for so many things.
Well, autopsies. That was in the news this week. Which has been, we've talked about this since COVID. This backlog for autopsies, which affects law enforcement. When they're trying to chase, like, was this a fentanyl death? How did this person get the fentanyl? Cases go cold for law enforcement before they can figure out if there was nefarious activity around a death, because we have deceased people sitting in coolers forever, waiting for an autopsy, families waiting to know awful answers, and law enforcement waiting to act. Now, who is that helping? And that kind of thing is not going away. Newborn screening, we talked about it multiple times because I can't think of something more important to not delay than making sure a newborn doesn't come up with some issues that you need to treat immediately. And so there's so many examples like that, but the taxpayers don't know. They have no idea. But you find out when there's a problem.
And that being said, why wouldn't you pay enough to compete with the labor market and keep people in, especially after you've trained them?
When you're spending the money anyway. Exactly. I'm with you 100%.
So the other issue, of course, is the state health plan. We've talked about it with Thomas a few weeks ago. Thomas Friedman came on the podcast. What does it need from the budget, or what are they asking for? Is there any changes afoot, I guess?
Well, one thing in the state health plan that they need and they need to try this because they never have. In fact, I wrote a newspaper column about this a little over 20 years ago about how North Carolina was 48th in the nation in funding their state health plan, and that's not changed.
Yeah.
And so it's underfunded no matter what party's in there, what governor you have.
Yeah.
You're still underfunding the state health plan.
And this piece of information is important too. A lot of legislators think, well, you're saying it's underfunded because it needs a lot more money, and that's because you people are going to the ER with a headache and stuff like that. It's because of the people in it. But the data presented by the health plan showed the utilization has actually gone, it's trending correctly. It's trending down. The users, the members in the health plan are being much more responsible about it. It looks good in terms of utilization, yet the costs keep skyrocketing. So you can't try to put that on the members at the end of the day. And I think that's a critical.
No, and you have many members now who go to the doctor and will not file the insurance because they can get again, chiropractors. That's one of the biggest ones in the state because you can go to the chiropractor, pay a cash price, and it's less than what you have to pay under the 80-20 or 70-30 plan. So that never gets reported to the state health plan.
My aunt has personal insurance, and she doesn't even use that when she goes to the chiropractor because she's like, I can pay like $35, or I could put my insurance down and they'll charge me a crap ton more.
Yeah. But they should try funding it properly just for 5 years and see how that goes.
But I would say before you, quote, fund it properly, you need to know what you're funding.
Right.
You need to know what you're paying. And that's the problem the Treasurer's Office is trying to control by creating more market incentive. Of course, our thing with it was, let's find out what we're paying them because let's shame the ones who are charging us 4 times what they should be. I think they thought politically that wasn't probably very viable because Treasurer Falwell tried that, and the legislature rebuffed him entirely, said absolutely not.
But it's hard to pay $785 on an employee for health care coverage and expect to get $1,200 a month.
Yeah.
Which is probably about the average for each state for state health plan employees.
So last year, premiums increased, but obviously the pay did not for employees. And there's talk of it increasing again next year, right? There was some
short of significant things happening to make the providers who are being overpaid get brought in line. And I mean get brought in line because this is wrong. This is morally wrong, and it's wrong financially to the taxpayers. It's just wrong.
Yeah.
And another thing with employees, yes, pay is important. Pensions are important. But that state health plan will affect you every day of your life and will sneak up on your budget quicker than anything else.
It's the number one cause of bankruptcy. Healthcare is. In North Carolina, it's the number one driver of bankruptcy, healthcare costs.
And we're the most expensive state in the country for healthcare.
Right.
It's all hand in hand, right?
Yeah.
So retirement issues, what do you see coming out of this short session?
Well, the retirement will be helped a great deal if we ever got the staffing back to 100%. Right now, we don't have enough people paying into the retirement system.
Yeah.
Flint, is that not another situation where you pay now or you pay later, just like training?
Exactly, because you cannot sustain the retirement system when you've got one person putting in for every one retiree. Used to, it was 5 or 6 people per retiree. Now, one way to look at it is the average pension is $22,000 a year.
Yeah.
Average state employee salary, let's say $60,000 a year at 6%. That's $3,600 going into the retirement plan. So that's $3,600 going from the active and $22,000 coming out by the retiree.
And that's
that
how
math
it was,
doesn't math.
Yeah, it's how it was built to work when the system was created.
But when you had 7 people to 1, it worked.
Yeah. So what are the prospects of a COLA this year, cost of living adjustment for retirees?
To be honest, that's probably out of the question since the board didn't recommend one. I don't see the legislature going against that recommendation. So the best thing we can do at this point is work for bonuses.
Yeah.
Yeah, the numbers we've seen from fiscal on the forecast, the economic forecast, revenue forecast for the next year wouldn't even come close to meriting enough money for a COLA. And that's the age-old problem we face. So we're either told, oh, we haven't made enough gains in the system, or, well, we've made enough gains, but
we got to take a 5-year look back.
Yeah, it's not the right time. Yeah. So that game has to stop, that shell game.
Okay. Are there any other issues that you're watching as the session starts?
It basically always comes down to pay, pensions, and health plan.
Yeah. one thing that I'll be interested to, well, I'm sure everyone will, is what happens with Phil Berger losing the primary and any kind of power struggle down there with the Senate. Do you see?
I think that could be a reason they have a short session this time, because you're going to need some people on that side of the aisle getting out there campaigning, and they need to be raising money so they can give to other people in the caucus.
Yeah. And any word on who's going to be the new leader?
Narrowed it down to about 6 or 7 at this point.
I heard you're up for it.
No, not me.
Not this year.
Not this time.
Since we have you here, Flint, and you are our political guru, I know it's really early to look at the midterms, but what are you thinking right now?
Well, that'll be up to state impact on if they endorse and who they endorse. But the main thing is we have to get SEANC members, active and retirees, to remember November 3rd. That's Election Day. And we need as many people as we can to take a vacation day, or that day they can't babysit or they can't schedule doctor's appointments or anything like that. And they need to be working the polls for the people we do endorse. Yeah. That can help us with legislators more than anything else, if they know that if we endorse them, we've got their precincts covered on Election Day.
And I'm impressed, Flint, that y'all aren't just saying it. You're doing training. You've got plans.
Yeah. In fact, we confirmed this morning that there should be a breakout session at convention where we can do poll training.
That'd be great.
We do have members in all 100 counties, so we will have people at polls probably throughout the state, right?
That is the goal, to have them in every county and active and working on November 3rd, Election Day.
And to give a shameless plug to our lobby day coming up on May 6th, that's a good first step for you. If you want to get out and get active in politics, you could come out to our lobby day and we will show you around the legislature and
hopefully meet your legislature.
Yeah. I think we have a lot of people signed up for it already. I'm pleasantly surprised. So.
It's hard for a lot of people to get off of work.
Yeah.
Everything's understaffed. So it's very tricky. We have heard a lot of that, but the ones that can manage it, they're going to come down. And I think there's no voice like their voice.
One thing I did see this week, I think it was from State Lines, when Colin Campbell was talking about the differences between our organization and maybe some other employee organizations and how they represent themselves to the legislature. He was saying that we obviously take a bipartisan approach and we may be a little more engaging than just standing on the corner yelling. You think that serves us well at the legislature?
I think having conversations always serve you well, instead of marching down the street when they're not there.
Yeah.
I mean, we've done this for long enough that we can tell you there's no political party that exists to do the right thing for state employees and retirees. Okay. That's not going to happen. You have people, politicians who will believe that. And then you try to cultivate those relationships and nurture those people so that they can hopefully move up in the ranks and they can convince other people that, look, this is in the best economic, moral interest, all the good interests of our state to do the right thing. It pays off. But that takes having some champions. And so that's why it takes all these pieces.
And you've got to have people that will talk to their legislators. They have to know who their legislator is, and they need to talk to them in their communities, at their churches. There's one representative, Representative Ben Moss from down around Moore County area. He has never been a state employee, but then in caucus, I'm told that he speaks up for retirees all the time because there's a group of retirees that are constantly talking to him, and he's constantly calling me into his office, what can I help do for retirees?
Yeah.
And that's just a relationship that they have got with him down there, and he's listening to them.
And that's so much more valuable than anything a lobbyist can say. We say stuff to them and they're like, okay, but you're paid to talk to me about state employees and retirees.
But when a representative or senator says, I saw one of my constituents in the drugstore the other day and they were telling me about the state health plan. I didn't realize y'all were paying this much for it. That gets to them.
So just back to the, bipartisan nature of SEANC, I would think that if SEANC was seen as a largely one-party organization, that one party really wouldn't take you seriously either because they know they have you, right?
If you're going to be a one-party organization, you better make sure that party is in control all the time. If not, you're going to be out when they're out.
Yeah. And they could probably take you for granted too, you know?
Exactly.
I mean, we take a lot of guff, to be honest with you. And that's the nature of it. We take guff from Democrats when they think, oh, you're too cozy with Republicans. And we take guff from Republicans when they're like, you sound like a Democrat right now. Look, I think what's happening is the world's catching up with SEANC. And SEANC's not trying to catch up with the world. SEANC's been in this position of we're going to endorse the people who do the right thing by state employees and retirees for years, for decades. And it feels to me like the world, especially I'm looking at Sammy, who's nodding, the younger folks particularly, they don't care about these political parties.
Yeah.
They care about who. I don't care what consonants after their name. Which of these jokers is going to do the right thing by me?
Mm-hmm.
And that's where we've been for a long time. And
we've been preaching that message for a long time. But,
if we can get people in the pews, let's do it.
So if you're interested in coming to our lobby day on May 6th at the legislature, we're going to meet at the state capitol at 9 a.m. and we're going to just have a whole day. We're going to give you lunch and we're going to take you around and let you meet your legislator. You can go to lobbyday, LOBBY day, .scenic.org. And we have a whole page there that I built and I'm very proud of. So check it out. We have a tool on there where you can look up your legislator's office so you can plan your day. And we look forward to seeing you down there on May 6th. And Sammy's going to be there to take your picture. Right?
Yeah.
So I think that's all I have for the short session. We don't know what's going to happen, but we know we'll be there to watch it, right? We'll be there. Sammy, what do you have for Gen Z moment?
I am so glad you asked. I have something so positive and fun that people got to focus on for at least the past week and a half. The Artemis II has officially splashed down safely, and the astronauts are home with their families.
Woo!
It was so cool to watch. I could probably talk about this for hours, but I'm just going to give you guys some of the highlights. So one thing that I thought was cool for the state of North Carolina, astronaut Christina Cook just became the first woman to travel beyond low Earth orbit.
Cool.
And she is also from North Carolina. She was raised in Jacksonville, and during high school, she went to the School of Science and Math. And she also graduated from NC State with her bachelor's and master's degree in electrical engineering.
Go Pack.
Both state institutions.
Yes.
Yeah.
Public schools.
Yeah. But it's cool to think the last time that we went to low Earth orbit, women couldn't even open a credit card. And now we've sent a woman there. It's cool. I'm excited about that. Other things that happened that people found very cool. As a Swiftie, this was a fun thing for us. Reed Weissman, the commander of the mission, at one point was showing off to the camera. He did a little heart and showed off his little Taylor Swift-inspired bracelet, to which 2 little lines just hit the Swifties everywhere when they said over the intercom, "Copy heart, copy bracelet." And now people are making shirts that have the path that the Artemis II took that is in the shape of a friendship bracelet. And it says, "Copy heart, copy bracelet." And they're just really cute shirts that are like Swiftie things that show the path that the Artemis II took, but also incorporates.
Well, and that's cool. That'll get attention, extra attention to this effort, which got such worldwide attention. It really was a positive thing for everybody. But the main thing is science.
Mm-hmm.
Science had a moment. And science has been kicked around a bit here lately. And government has been kicked around. And this wasn't a billionaire's spaceship.
No.
This was the people's spaceship. And government did that.
Yeah. We were watching it. My wife was like, "That's the spaceship?" Like, because they landed and it doesn't look anything like the shuttle. Everyone's so used to the shuttle now, and the shuttle has wings and it looks like an airplane. And I was like, "Yeah, that's how they used to do it." And but it's pretty neat it's almost like we're living back in the space race days, We're actually, it says here that Artemis IV will be landing on the moon. It's the first crewed landing on the moon since 1972 with Apollo 17. So we got a few more of these to watch.
But, we didn't put, again, and not to kick the billionaires, but okay. It wasn't a billionaire spaceship. Celebrities didn't get on the thing just to ride around. These were scientists up there doing serious scientist stuff.
And they even said whenever they landed, they had their first press conference where they mentioned, they were like, that was the fun part. Now it's time for the hard work of showing you guys all the things that we learned up there and all the different things that we are now bringing back to NASA to further space travel.
Or improve things on Earth. That's what's always amazed me about the space program. There's so much they learn up there that ultimately changes something here that you wouldn't have connected. But they can actually do the research up there easier. So, again, another plug for public programs.
So, yay, North Carolina State University and North Carolina School of Science and Math.
I will say, just because we recognized Reed Wiseman and Christina Cook, I want to point out that the other two people who were there, Victor Glover, he was our pilot and he did amazing, got them there and home safely. And then Jeremy Hansen, who was actually from the Canadian Space Station, he was the first Canadian to go on a mission around the moon.
Very cool.
So some very fun little things that we learned about this space mission that I, again, could talk for hours about.
And man, was that incredibly timed after the movie Project Hail Mary.
Oh, yeah, I got to see that.
Oh.
I heard a lot about that.
Talk about something positive. That was...
And it's Ryan Gosling.
That's a feel-good thing.
My brother and his girlfriend went and saw it, but I have not seen it yet.
So it says here that Christina, is it Koch or Cook?
Cook.
Okay, because it's spelled like the Koch brothers. But she moved to Jacksonville, North Carolina in 1982 and spent her childhood there. So.
Yes. Yeah, she was born in Grand Rapids, Michigan, according to this. Yeah.
Awesome.
Just a little moon joy.
So it's time for the question of the week.
John's wacky weird question of the week.
Kind of a random one this week. What state would you like to visit? And it can't be one that you've already visited. And I can go first. I want to go to California, but I want to go specifically to watch The Price is Right. It's like my dream in life. It's like since I was like a little kid, we watched The Price is Right, and I want to be on The Price is Right.
So is your dream to watch it or to be on it?
I want to go to be in the audience and then maybe get picked, you know?
Do you think you would do well?
I don't know. I mean, I'd have to watch a lot before.
I would not do well.
Prepare. Because I don't know prices now of things, really. Like, you know, because, So
I do.
I've given this a lot of thought. But I really want to be on The Price is Right. I think I could, once you get past, like, the consumer goods, it's all a crapshoot, right? So I could win me a car, right? Or I could play Plinko. That would be awesome, too. So I want to go to California just to be on The Price is Right.
You have to pay taxes on that car.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. What about you, Flint?
I would say South Dakota.
Oh.
Because I'd like to go see Mount Rushmore. Never seen that.
Is that where, that's also where the big bike rally is, right?
Yeah, I don't care about
Sturgis.
that.
Yeah.
I want to do something political, so that'd be go to Mount Rushmore.
South Dakota, that's a good one. That's unexpected. So, what about you, artists?
Maine. I would want to go see the Puffins, and thanks to some awesome scenic members, Jamie and Amy Robinson, I now know you can go see them there.
Nice.
So I want to go to Maine.
My wife also wants to go to Maine because she did a project on it when she was like in third grade. She's always been enamored with it.
I think it would be beautiful.
We've looked at some cruises to Maine, Flint. You'll appreciate that. But what about you, Sammy?
I feel like I got to go with Alaska.
Oh, yeah.
Just because one of my goals in life is to visit every state. And I feel like I've already made it to Hawaii, and that's one of the hardest ones to get to. Alaska's kind of second hardest to get to. So let me knock that out so that I can be able to say one day that I've been to every state.
Kind of amazing too.
If you ever go to Alaska, you'll just want to go again.
You've been, right?
Yes.
My parents have been as well, and that was one of the things that made me really want to go. It's also just, it's a once-in-a-lifetime experience for some of those things.
Money, I would go every year to Alaska.
Really?
Yeah.
What's so great about it?
It was just, I went in September, and we were like 90 degrees in Raleigh at the time, and Alaska was 55 degrees the whole time.
Yeah.
Everything was nice and green, and took trains around and saw a lot of the landscape.
Yeah.
And
Did you see lots of animals?
Yeah, saw a lot of animals. Also went to the glacier and saw the icebergs and what have you.
That's cool.
And
yeah.
I will say, at least where my parents went, everything closed around 9 or 10 o'clock. They don't have things that stay open very late there.
Maybe not a great place for young people then, right?
I mean, I'd still do the adventure stuff and be ready to go to bed by 9, 10 o'clock.
I was going to say,
especially time changes and stuff.
But the club scene's probably rough in Juneau.
I don't know. I didn't even go to any clubs when I was in Hawaii. I'm not a big clubbing person. I'm more like, I want to do all the adventurous, cool stuff during the day and then get to bed so that I can do more starting earlier.
There you go. Well, I think it was a good, informative episode for the upcoming session. Everyone enjoy your week.